right, so thanks a lot, everyone, for having me here. And first off, thanks again, Dave, for launching this community, and people like Jose and Charles and Cassie and just everybody, Adam behind the scenes that are doing all this stuff for OTJ. It's been, for me, a real pleasure to connect with educators in Japan that are not international school educators. So it's been a real pleasure. I get your conversations because I've been hanging out with people who teach in the Japanese system for the last 24 years, but that's not my day-to-day life, right? So I'm going to share my screen and tell you a bit about myself, and then we'll get going. Oh, you have to make me a co-host there, Charles.
Okay, hold on a second. Now that's in security, right? Is that, let's see.
Right next to Nate's name.
Yeah.
No, next to Nate's name. I can do it next to Nate's name. Okay.
Yep.
Toggle on his name at the end.
Let's see, make host or make I
co-host
see make
is
host.
Fine. Co-host is fine.
I don't see the make co-host. I'll just make host for now.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. I don't need
and you'll lose your host status.
I don't need to be a host, really. There's nothing I'm doing except letting people
things that I've learned. I've been doing a lot of consulting for schools in the United States in the last month, and some of them are on Meet, some of them are on Zoom. So I've actually been learning Zoom pretty quickly. All right, so let me just let's see. I'm going to share my whole desktop actually, because we're going to be bouncing around some tabs and that kind of thing.
Nate,
yep.
Nate, sorry, just before you begin wholeheartedly in earnest,
yep.
I got to go get some dinner because I'm starving.
Oh,
so
that's fine.
I'm going to be out of here for a bit, and Adam is going to be out of his office for a bit. So just want to tell you guys, neither of us are going to be here in case anything else explodes tonight, but I'm sure nothing else will.
I can help out with that.
Thank you very much, my friend.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be about 40 minutes or so, and I'll be back with my camera. Sorry about that, Nate.
No
Thanks
problem, Jose. I'll make sure I do the good stuff first.
Yeah, sorry, I'd be kicked out of this office, and they basically say, "Go home, you crazy workaholic." So,
yeah,
they lock me out, kick me out, and lock me out. So,
take care, Adam.
I have no choice. But
no, not a problem.
I got you covered.
You've got the slide deck. Have a look at some of the stuff that you may or may not use or know. But anyway, thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it. All right, so thanks everybody. Again, this session is going to be on student voice, and again, strategies for using online tools. And I deliberately called it for, with online tools, simply because, any of this that you're going to see today, whether it's new to you or not, whether it's a strategy or a tool, you can use when we're teaching face-to-face, right? And whether it's synchronous or online synchronous, asynchronous, or, flipped learning when students are doing things at home. So I deliberately took out the remote learning bit here because it really does apply to teaching in general. And most of this stuff are things that I've been doing for quite a number of years now. Quickly, for those who may not know me, a little bit about myself. As I said during the chit chat, I don't teach in the Japanese system. I'm an international school teacher, and I have been for 20 years. I spent a few years in Aomori at a small junior high school, so I get a small idea of what your life is like. For myself, though, I've been doing I've been teaching at one-to-one schools for 20 years, meaning every student in the class and every teacher in the school has their own computer. So I've been doing that since the year 2000. So I've been doing this kind of thing for quite a while now, which eventually led to me doing consulting on the side for schools and school districts and individual teachers. I did spend about 4 years as a technology coach. I've listed a few certifications I have. I got a pile of others, but it's the kind of thing that I really, I dig. I think it's really fun. So if you have any questions about anything, please feel free to throw it my way in the OTJ Facebook page or in the chat tonight. And if you want to keep the convo going, if you use Twitter, you can find me at Nathan GILDART. I've got a website and a YouTube channel I'm working on called Social Studies Samurai, but through that, I'm putting up educational technology videos for educators where it's not really for social studies teachers, it's for any teacher. If you're in particular, upper elementary to university, you'll probably find some things that might be useful for you. So that's enough for the self-promotion. So today, we're going to talk about student voice as a motivating practice. We're going to talk about voice and connecting with an authentic audience, and we're going to look at some online tools that augment student voice. And we're going to look at things like projects, which would be, more long-term stuff. And we're going to look at digital activities. Now, the way I've kind of set this session up is that all of these three things are kind of mixed and merged in together. So you've got to think, what is, how do we motivate our students? What is that authentic audience, and what tools can we use to do that? So, all right, first one I want to do
Nate, just before you continue to interrupt, because you're the host, you have to let people come in because they're in a waiting room. So if you,
Oh, okay.
if I don't know if you can see that in the participant window.
I don't get it in the chat there, so let me.
It would be in participant window, not the chat.
Or not the chat, but the yeah. I've admitted people into these things for a while now, using
Yeah.
through Zoom. I just have to
If you want to make me host, I'd be happy to handle that. You can still share your screen and everything.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to do that, Sir Dave. Let me pull up my screen.
You're going to go up next to my name.
Yeah, I got you, man. We're good. I'm just finding you. There you go.
Hover
Changing
over.
you now.
Okay, so now I'll be in charge of that, and I'll allow you to share your. I think, yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, folks. So the first thing that I'm going to show you, again, this is how we're kind of bouncing around. What strategies can we use to augment student voice? Now we're going to play a little bit with the a tool called Mentimeter. I put a link down here, but I'm going to simply share it. I've already built this. I'll show you how that kind of works in just a moment. But let me just copy the link, and I'm going to throw it in the chat here. And so I'm going to present my screen. Now
I'll be right back.
should-
I have to answer the phone.
No problem. So you could either go to, on your phone or on whatever device you're using, www.menti.com, and then type in the code that you see at the top, 7424256. And I want you to please type more than one idea. Type one idea, hit enter. Type another idea, hit enter. Hopefully that's clear. So go to the link that I put in, should take you directly to it, or www.menti.com, and then type in the code that I'm projecting on your screen right now. And I've set it so that you can respond multiple times.
Where's the code? Where's the code? Where's the code? Oh, there it is.
Maybe what I'll do is throw the code in the chat for you.
7, 2,
I just thrown the code in the chat. That way you can just copy and paste it in.
6. We're just waiting for you to open that, Nate.
It should be open. I've got it opened up and I'm projecting it actually right now. What do you see in there, Dave?
The question is not open for voting. Please wait for the presenter to open it.
Okay, hold on a sec. I don't know what's
That's
going
what
on.
I see as well.
Okay, let me just jump in here. Content should be good.
I'll refresh my page here.
Yeah, refresh your page and see what that does. I've got.
I can see the question, but it's behind a pop-up. The question is not open for voting. Yeah.
Not open for voting. I get the same thing. Not open for voting.
Really? Okay, hold on one sec. Let me jump back in here and see what the deal is.
It's kind
I've literally never had this happen before. Let me refresh my screen because I am logged in. I literally used this with my grade 11 students today. Huh. Flow grid allowed you. Well, so have a look at what I'm doing here. Actually, this is how voting is closed. Now, why is that?
Maybe you already used the poll.
No, I didn't. No.
Okay.
Type open-ended. Yeah. Why though is that?
I wonder if it's up in the configure, up in the gear.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, close voting. All right, hold on. Strange though. I kind of made one today that. All right, give it a go.
It just opened up.
Refresh your thing. Yeah.
That did it.
Thanks. That's strange because I didn't have to do that this afternoon with my students. That's odd. Anyway, so there's one thing. If it won't vote, configure. So please type in more than one response. Just a couple is fine. We've got about 10 people in the room. I'd like you to see how this kind of works. What strategies can we use to augment student voice? Be as limited or as detailed as you choose. And you know what I should be doing is playing a bit of music in the background here, but I was a little bit late to the game. My apologies.
It's the same question more than once, I think I'm pretty.
Just a couple of strategies. So it's the one question, and then what can you know, what's one idea? What's another idea? Just kind of add them separately.
Okay. I accidentally added like I think two together. Or something.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Once we get probably about 8 or 9 in here, you're going to see how this kind of works. So this is something in class you would give your students maybe about 5 minutes. Maybe give them some background. Could be used for brainstorming. It could be used for reflection on an assessment you gave them, or maybe a reading you've given them. Okay, so if you look at the screen, go ahead and finish up what you're doing there, folks. Would like to get a few more in there, but give them a megaphone. Can you see everybody's comments here?
Yes.
Right. So as you see now, when you get a large number of comments, what's going to happen is you're going to see all of these just kind of scroll at random. You see one on the left kind of scrolling here. But essentially what happens is as people put in their ideas, if you have a class of, say, 40 students, right? And let me just, there, the scrolling's coming along now as people are getting more ideas in. So it's going to be the same comments that they're given, and it'll scroll kind of through. But if you get like 30 or 40 comments in there, it gives you this cycle as you go through, and you as the teacher can use this to guide a discussion, right? And so let's say you have a difficult topic. The election's happening in the United States right now. For me, because I teach at an international school, here's a way that you can kind of get brainstorming and get thinking. It is anonymous. If you want to buy it, you could, link it to a student, like tracking responses and things like that. I haven't done that myself, but having a look here, promote creative activities, dialogue, production of content, lead group discussions, giving them places and chances to express opinions. And that's the core of today, actually, giving them opportunities, right, to express themselves. Let's see, give them alcohol. Sure, depends on how old they are, but hey, why not, right? I'd get fired for that being a high school teacher. But so anyway, you see how this kind of works. What I do is have this projected on the board, and I get students to kind of share their ideas. And I teach courses called Individuals and Societies, as well as diploma program history, like evil dictators and things like that. But we look at the news a lot, and we talk about controversial topics. So pop that out. Go back in here. So that's called Mentimeter. So you can see what I'm talking about with, this is going to be kind of, back and forth, kind of bouncing from augmenting student voice to motivating students to, the tools that we use. So there's one tool for you. It's called Mentimeter. And the nice thing about Mentimeter, actually, I'll come back to it. Let me escape just to show you how, what's on offer in the tool. So if I go back to my presentations, I'm just going to jump down here. Might take a moment. There we go. So wait for that to load here. Let's see. I'm in my school account here. No, I'm not. I'm in my personal account. So if I was to open up one of these, and if you could see here, it says type, right? Now, for this one in particular, this type, you can make word walls, right? So that's
Word
one
clouds.
thing that you can do, or word clouds. Yeah, not word walls, sorry. Wordles, they're often called too.
Yeah.
You can have questions where if you have 5 different choices, they can rank them. You can do a multiple choice and then look at, as a class, if you've got like say 30 to 40 students, let's say you have 4 options, then you're going to see where people stand on a question kind of thing. And it could be used as a quiz really, which isn't so much voice, but there's other things that you can do. You can get, it's not popping up here, but they have spider graphs, which is pretty cool, and things like that. So anyway, that's,
Nate,
yep.
Does this work? I see the quiz competition. Does this work a little bit like, what is it, Kahoot? Anything? Is it sort of that same kind of feel?
Not quite Kahoot, right? It just, they can compete with each other, but it's not developed like that. I would recommend Kahoot or Quiziz or Quizlet rather than Mentimeter.
No, the only reason I ask is just, I think teachers get overwhelmed by having so many tools, and if there's like one tool that combines, a couple, that's kind of a good thing.
Yeah, I agree, especially for the teacher that's kind of new to technology. I'm kind of in the camp that over time, a teacher should try to mix it up a bit, because when students get Kahoot all the time, You know, if you do a Kahoot, then a Quizlet, then Quizzes, then Mentimeter, you know, you're doing the same thing, but they're doing something different, and it has a different interface. So it kind of keeps students a little bit motivated, a little more motivated perhaps. But I agree, if you're starting out, you don't want to overwhelm yourself, right? Okay, so there's another one I want to show you. I don't know if people have used Pear Deck. Pear Deck is an interactive tool that works with Google Slides. So any of you that are doing our G Suite for Education schools, this is called an add-on, which is, well, the company is called Pear Deck. They've become so popular worldwide that they're actually charging $100 a year for a subscription for even just one teacher. And they are now an official partner with Google. Yeah, exactly. I don't think it's so awesome that it's worth $100 of my money a year. But anyway, if you look up here, how you would use it is an add-on. You go up to your, in Google Slides, it only works with slides, but here you're going to see add-ons, and you tap on that. And if you don't have it, you would tap Get Add-ons and then type in the word Pear Deck, right? The words. But I want to show you how it works because I've already kind of put it into my add-ons. So I would go to add-ons and then I would open Pear Deck. You can see already I've set up the slide for this presentation, and we'll show you how it works in just a moment. So what I've gone and done is, you know, you have a range of options of different backgrounds and formats and layouts and themes that you can use. I've gone with a simple one, text. So I'm going to ask you a text question. So I've already set it up. And basically you create your slide first. And then when you tap on this, it's going to create a border for you. Every layout is different. I've gone with the simplest one right now, just because I want to walk you through this Pear Deck. So when I click Start Lesson, right, you're seeing the teacher view right now. I'm going to choose the instructor paced activity. If your students are learning remotely and you want to record their answers in a spreadsheet, Pear Deck will do that for you, and you could use student paced activity. I'm using instructor paced activity, so this is exactly what you would do if you were remotely teaching with your students. So I'm going to tap that. Oh, and I'm going to sign in. I could have done this earlier, but let me just do that. I've actually got a free account because of my, it's a nice thing about being a Google trainer. They give you a lot of free stuff. So I've got a free account actually for this. And I'm spreading their propaganda right now, not because I feel like I have to, but because I think it's a cool tool. Just wait for that to load. And you're going to get a pop-up here, and it's going to give you a tab to go to. So it's going to say joinpd.com. So please open another tab, and you're going to get a code here. So this is what I would project to my students, or if I wanted to, I could give them a link. But you're going to ask them to joinpd.com. So please open another tab and type in RJIRH. Maybe Charles, if you could, or Dave, one of you throw that in the chat. Or actually, maybe I could do that. What am I doing? I'm just going to do that. Let me go to chat here. Joinpd.com. And then it's RJIRH. So you get them to joinpd.com, and then you type that. Now you notice if you look at my screen, it says 1 student's connected. So I need a few more people in here.
Yep, I'm doing it right now.
I got 2. Wonderful. So wait for a few more. I think we probably have about, what, 7 or 8 people, including me, in the room right now. We have an hour and a half, so I feel like we don't really need to rush this. It'd be nice if people can experience this. Okay, let me just cut them out. So over 10 participants, include me in the screen. So we'll wait for maybe one more person to kind of jump in here. Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? Okay, it says 5 students are connected. So now that I see my whole class is connected, let's say, I'm going to click on Start Class. And now here's the thing with Pear Deck. It takes you to the beginning of your slide presentation. The nice thing is you don't have to use Pear Deck through your whole presentation. It can be one. But what I had to do now is go down and choose my slide. So close that. And now I'm going to go down. I've got to move things around here a little bit so I don't. All right, so if you can see, it says show responses. Now I want you to respond to the question. And so I'm mousing over to the bottom here, and I'm going to tap on show responses. And so in real time, I can watch students give their ideas. You can get names for students with a paid account and all that kind of stuff. But You know, I'm just using the free version, but you can see I'm getting your voice. I'm getting your ideas in real time. And this is, if it's anonymous, it's good to get those real thoughts. Like, how do you feel about protests becoming violent in America? How do you feel about police brutality in the United States, you know? And so you can scroll through, talk with students, not at them. I love that, talk with. And it's not even talk to, right? It's talk with the students, not at them. I think that's a great comment. This is a sample response, voice intonation, right? Tell a joke. I like that eye contact. People want to be talked to, talked with, right? Yeah, definitely, you know, creating that relationship, right? Create an open atmosphere where people are not afraid to share their ideas, right? That's the first thing I do in my classes, actually, is we get into discussion etiquette and things like that, because I do a lot of activities like this. And I do emphasize, when you're anonymous, you know, you can still make people feel uncomfortable. You know, you don't have to agree with people, but how do you do that? So I think I'm going to pop at a paradox. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to click end. And I'm going to click end session without naming it, because this will record and keep your session if you want, but I'm not going to do that. All right, let me just close this up. I'm going to go back here. So just to show you kind of how it works, I'm going to go back to my other slide. Am I going too quick? Do we have any questions in there? Or
Working good.
Groovy. So what's kind of nice is when you go down, I can go up here and look at the template library. Whoops. So I tap on that, and I can choose between, you know, these already created templates for the beginning of the lesson, during, or the end, like, you know, exit tickets, so that kind of thing, brainstorming. There's critical thinking things. I'm going to go down because I'm a social studies teacher. Or actually, no, let's go to world languages, because most people here teach English, right? You've got slides where people can draw. So if you're a kindergarten teacher and they have iPads, then you could do that, or early elementary. So you notice the templates here, right? They look a little more engaging. They've got, you know, like the different, you know, images and things like that. So you would just kind of tap that, and it's going to plant it over my slide here. Just wait for that to load for a moment. And all I have to do is go in, and notice that was put on top of my slide, or sorry, put in between my two slides. And all I have to do is change the text and then start the lesson like I showed you a moment ago. So there's another one you can think about using if you're a slides deck user in your classes. So let me just kind of present here for a moment. We're going to come back to a few more of those things in a moment. I didn't want to throw a whole bunch of things like tools right away. So let's talk about how we can get the voice. Those two examples are things that you would do in your class, right? Whether you're doing it synchronously or asynchronously. But let's think about, you know, the obvious ones that are out there, like websites, blogs, student portfolios, right? There are so many free, you know, services out there, if you will. Wix, Weebly, Blogger, Google Sites, WordPress. They all have free website builders, and what they do is put their advertising in there through the URL name. And if you spend 20 bucks for a domain, then you can just link your Wix site to a domain that's not that expensive, and there you've got your own website for 20 bucks a year. You know, you might want to think about naming conventions. You know, like that might be your professional blog or your professional website, and then you just have a link for student voice or something like that. But it is really pretty inexpensive and pretty easy to start your own professional site. And if you're a person that bounces from different schools, then I do recommend you make it like your own site that you can use regardless of where you're at. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of works in progress. And this is just to emphasize that this stuff takes a lot of time. We started doing this before the pandemic last year. Just a reminder, INS means individuals and societies. It's the IB version of social studies. So we decided as a department that we're going to start a student blog, right? And you know, we want to give our students voice. And so we thought there's a couple of ways to do that. And one way is to show student learning. And what I did actually, this background that you can see, it was made by grade 9 students. I had them, if you look at the words here, like conflict and trends, and globalization, diversity, power, perspective. A couple of students actually drew and designed that. And I thought that is going to be a great banner for our podcast and for our student learning blog. So this is made on a Google site. If you can see in the URL, this is in the slide deck, so you can just tap on that. I've kept it really, really simple. And so what we've done, this is not super well developed, but we've got it by grade so that throughout the year, or sorry, not throughout the year, but over the years, let's say when a student goes from grade 10 to grade 11, well, that same student might see something that they recorded on video or audio or something they wrote in grade 10. And then when they're in grade 11, they might have something else that they put here, right? So I'm going to jump up to grade 12. And like I said, it's a work in progress. So what I've done is put all of these in a shared drive folder for our department. And so when students create work, whether it's a video or whether it's a piece of written work, we've uploaded it to that shared drive folder so that whenever I leave my school, somebody else just has to take over, right? So for example, I've linked not the image here, but I've linked the document the student wrote. So you can tap the link. I've also put the image source in there just to be academically honest. And I've changed the share settings so it's public on the web. So now anybody can go to this and they can click. And this young girl, Kiana, who's now studying in England, she did, for anybody who might be Irish out there, her father's Irish, her mother's Japanese, and she did this fabulous essay on the Kanamambam, which was a women's rights movement in, around the beginning and around the period of the First World War and after. So this is the kind of thing that's got to be shared, right? I mean, I sent this to my family and they're like, really? This kid is this kid's in grade 12? And I told them she actually wrote it when she was in grade 11, if you can believe that. So what we've done is, or what we're doing, I should say, we've got some files, but as you can see, we haven't had a chance to really update this stuff. And that's one of our department goals, for the year. We've got one student that submitted something in an essay contest. She just showed me her certificate, actually, that she got. We have another student, a Canadian girl that did something on the Roanoke colony. That was her extended essay as well. Pretty fabulous stuff. Anyway, we've got to be diligent about getting this uploaded. We haven't publicized this yet because we don't have enough content on it. We've also linked our podcast, which I'll go into more detail later. But what we've done, we started a podcast halfway through last year. The pandemic kind of changed everything in terms of our ability to do it. And we're going to get into podcasting in more detail in a bit. But we've also linked a podcast with this, drop-down menu. So there's actually 5 episodes. So I've got to kind of update this. But 5 episodes starting in January is not too bad, right? We've got one student that talked about his trip and what he learned when he was hiking in Nepal. He missed 3 weeks of school. And he was like, oh, how do I make up my work? And I said, well, tell you what, don't worry about the work that you're going to miss, but this is what you're going to do when you're gone, right? And he took photos and he kept a journal, and that his final demonstration of learning was actually a podcast, plus submitting his notes and his photos, which was great, right? You want to talk about student voice? Wow. Our economics students, a few of them.
Can we see it? I want to see some of that.
Yeah. Well, there's no photos in here. It's a podcast, okay. Right? So, but yeah, if I was really on the ball, I would have got some of his photos and put it in there. But if you notice the topics here, I had some students in grade 11, last year, grade 12, talk about, no, they were in grade 11 actually. I was talking about that experience. But basically we were talking about what is it like to be an historian, because when they write their extended essay, they have to talk, they have to do the role of an historian, right? They're researchers. But it could be anything under the sun. Your English students, it could be, tell us about your greatest challenge trying to learn to write in English, or tell us about a place that you hope and dream to travel to. What does language mean to you? What will bilingualism do for you in your future? It can be anything under the sun. If you call it like a student blog or a student learning blog or something like that, I mean, basically it's whatever they're doing. If I know everybody in the call, you don't all, teach just English. You might be teaching other subjects like film and maybe international relations and things. So think about how you're going to name your podcast if you choose to do one. We'll actually get to that in just a moment. I want to show another one. Whoops, that's coming later. I'm working on this. I literally just started last weekend because our school now is getting clubs to build them on Google Sites. So I do a TED Ed club. And if you go back to the slide deck, you notice that, here's another idea for these are websites and blogs we're talking about, but later on, I will come to TED style talks. But again, here's a Google site where I've got my lessons for students here under the explorations. Again, this has to be updated a little bit, but these are all videos. They're 2-minute videos that the TED organization has created for students to generate thinking as you go into the lesson. They call their lessons explorations. Now, the next step for me is I've got to get their videos without their names uploaded. So I've kind of made my template page, but I'm going to go by year and kind of throw these things in here. And of course, you can have your events page and things like that. But, you know, for us, another way of giving voice to my students were two things. And we'll come to events when we talk about TED style talks and events later. But in this, these are TED Talks that my own students like. And I gave them a Google form and I said, I want you to share the link of the talk, give the title of the talk, and I want you to briefly write why you think it's important, right? So, Kotomi, actor Joseph Gordon talks on our use of social media. That's one we can all connect with. Now, there's no period in there. But anyway, you can see that I'm in my TED Ed Club. I'm trying to get my students to share what TED videos or talks inspire them. And hopefully they're going to inspire other people through putting their voice into our YouTube, our Google site. So there's another way you can use sites, for example. Now, you can do essays and poetry, and again, get those on the web. Writing contests, as I said, I had a student just received her certificate from the New York Times for participating in their contest. I've got another student that when we're finished, I've got to go through a final edit for a contest she's putting into the Washington Post, I think. One girl's from Peru writing for the New York Times, and another girl's from Japan, and she's writing for the Washington Post. It's totally cool. But writing contests, I think, that are outside of school, having them in school is a great idea because you don't have to worry so much about permissions and really figuring out the rules of the contest. If you do it in your school, you can set it yourself, and maybe your schools do have it. But I myself don't like the nature of contests. But if it was like an event or something like that, where everybody's guaranteed to get voice and some kind of prize, and then you give certificates. I mean, you can negotiate that with the people that you work with, but I think an in-house opportunity, let's call it, for your students to write about something they're passionate about, if you give a broad enough topic, and then you put it out there publicly, students have that sense of accomplishment while they get that authentic audience that we've been talking about, right? So again, going back to the blog and maybe writing contests, looking for that authentic audience, if you get it out to the world and you tell students, hey, this is going to be seen by other people, you get work that is good, not work that is good enough, or you're more likely to do that. There's something I forgot to put in here. I'm going to make a note of, actually, that I've done with my students, Twitter, which I'll go back to in a minute. And if I forget, please remind me, Charles. Things like, when students create documentary videos, public service announcements. I do that with my students in more so in grade 9, grade 11 and 12. They're pretty much doing a first-year university course. So I don't get them to do as much of that kind of stuff. But when they create video, I do like to get it out there. But again, I'm moving things from my own private school account to our student learning blog kind of thing. So, think about that. When students come up with something digital, get it out there to the world. It could be an assignment where they're using, creating documentaries. Maybe you have them giving a monthly vlog where they're they're just, explaining their learning or what they're thinking. And then, that could be, if you have them record a video and they could put it on their YouTube channel, if they, that gives them more ownership and agency. Or maybe, if you get them to record a simple video on their phone, and then they upload it to a drive file, and then you curate that stuff on your YouTube channel. Again, giving them voice. I feel like I'm talking a lot here. Do we have any questions or comments in there? Any thoughts from people? It's like, yeah, and you could.
Nate, there is one, which is outside of the Google site. How is students' writing seen by the outside world?
So again, that's why you would use maybe a web page or
Right.
a Google site, or you would use a YouTube channel, because that's where you link everything. Now, if you wanted to, you could create a hyperdoc. I posted a video on hyperdocs and how to make them in OTJ last week. You could actually publish a Google Doc. You can publish that to the web. So if you made a nice looking hyperdoc and then just put in links there, then you could get it out there just by putting that link public on, like if you publish it to the web and then share the link, Nobody can edit it. It just has a bunch of links, and then you've got a voice for your students, and then you don't have to go through the process of building a Google site. What I like about building a site, whether it's through Wix, I mean, my personal website, socialstudiessamurai.com, it's a Wix account because you can do so much more. I don't think Google Sites is great. It's kind of limiting, but that's also the nice thing about Google Sites is that you don't get confused by all these things. You're not looking around. I mean, it's so simple. And if you stay consistent from page to page, then you can make a pretty decent Google site, right? But again, Blogger, if you want students blogging, instead of getting them writing through, write it on a Word doc and then mail it to me, just get them to type it on a blog and they share a link to you. So they could use Blogger or a Google site as a blog, and then they can publish that to the web as well. All they have to do is publish it and then everybody can see it. You can make them private so only certain people can see them, but the point is to get voice there, right?
But there's, if you have Squarespace up there, and I know that if you create a student site using Squarespace, I mean there is a special sort of blog type page.
Yep,
that's right. You could make that as as part of the class page. So that might be kind of a one-stop shopping kind of approach.
Absolutely. In fact, all of these have that similar kind of feature, right? Even Google Sites, I mean, the problem with Google Sites is that the classic Google Sites, you could actually assign one page to an individual and then they could edit just that. So it was great for student portfolios because you could make your site, assign one page to each individual student in a drop-down menu, and then you could moderate and put the word out, and you're the owner of the site. But you can't do that anymore. But in other places like Squarespace, you could do that, right? But it really depends on how much time you want to put into it. If you want to go simple, I recommend something like Weebly, Wix, or Google Sites because they really are just ridiculously easy to use. Or just tell your students, here are your options for creating your portfolio. I mean, you could call it a student portfolio, and that's where they demonstrate their learning. Though I like to have the student work so that I can put it out there. Some students are shy. They've given me this beautiful piece of work, whatever it might be. And I want the world to see it. I think it's pretty cool, some of the things that the kids are doing, right?
I run a teacher training program. All of my students are trying to become certified English teachers, and over the years, because they just advance so rapidly in their knowledge, I'm always trying to figure out, in terms of student voice, getting the higher level students to be able to be teaching the lower level students and them listening and talking to each other. But one of the tools I used for that was to create a website, and so that the knowledge of the fourth year students doesn't ever get lost, and so the fourth year students are always in charge of the website, and it just sort of gets bigger over the years. But unfortunately, I think we created about 5 or 6 years ago on Wix. Okay. And my students find Wix a bit complicated. I always find the transition from fourth year students to the third year students, trying to get the third year students to know how to use Wix is always a challenge. I was just wondering if among these, is there one that you think would be easier for something like that?
By far, Google Sites. What I like about Google Sites is that it's like a tap. It's not even drag and drop. You can do that, but let me just kind of show you here. Let me go. Oh, right. I'm in different accounts here, so I'm not going to be able to show you that. Will I? Yeah, I don't have those shared with me. I can't demonstrate.
It's okay. I'll take a look later.
But basically, with Google Sites, it's linked to your Google Drive account. So, I mean, if you want to put in docs or if you've got videos in your account, you can link any YouTube video anyway, but it's really easy to use. It's drag and drop / tap, and it goes into your interface, like into your workspace. I found Weebly. I haven't used Weebly, honestly, in about 6 or 7 years, maybe even longer, but Weebly was a drag and drop, so you drag the feature and drop it into your workspace. And it's pretty basic, more advanced than Sites, but basic and easy to use. So I would recommend, if you're a G Suite school, why not use Google Sites? Because then you can collaborate with each other building the site. There's more in terms of themes that you can use with Weebly. As the teacher, I'd say just, play with a couple and think, okay, if I was a fourth or third year student, how would I use this? You gave me a thought though, Charles. When your students are communicating, like if you've got fourth year students acting as mentors for third, second, and first year students, you know, that is student voice. So you get those older students acting as mentors, create a public forum, whether it's a Google group or whatever, where younger students can ask questions and the older students can pose responses. Well, anybody can pose a response. So a Google group is a way that, you know, everybody has some agency and everybody has a little bit of a voice, right? I didn't even have that in here, but you gave me that thought, right?
No, but absolutely. I mean, you know, we do have line groups, and we do get them talking to each other through that. But I mean, I think the main thing that I've been doing, because they're all in different classes, they're not taught together, is that several times a year I have these overnight camps, and I you know, even though it's only required for third and fourth year students, I try and pull in some of the second year students, also graduate students, and students who have graduated and moved on and become teachers. So there's these, you know, like literally, you know, people all the way who are already in their professional careers coming back and helping students who are just at the beginning, and everybody kind of learning from each other and talking to each other. So that's part of that creating that atmosphere where everybody has a voice and everybody feels that they have something important to say. And it's astonishing just watching that growth from second year to, you know, to the time they graduate. But
I love that. Yep. And you know, you're sparking a few things that I didn't put in here that I'm thinking, well, we actually do that. If you're a G Suite school and you use a Google group, you can keep it private, but students have voice among each other and they can act as, like, you know, those mentors. But something we do in our homeroom class, I'm a grade 12 homeroom teacher. And once a week, we've got, you know, Teaching Tuesday, we call it. And what the students do is teach everybody else something that they've learned, but it's outside of the curriculum. So sometimes it's how to cook, how to sew. Again, that gives them voice. They choose something they're interested in. I had a student, you know, what he taught the kids was how to keep your cords and cables with your earbuds from getting all scrunched up and tangled in your backpack or your purse or your whatever, right? So things like that. I mean, when we talk about student voice, it doesn't have to be this big grand, the whole world can see it. Even though the topic of the moment is to get the word out to an authentic audience. But remember, amongst each other, that is an authentic audience. It's not just between you and the teacher and maybe the parents, depending on how old they are, right? So let me move on here, though, unless there's another comment in there. I threw these. I'm not going to show these, but this is just an example of showing student work. To me, it kind of gets their voice out there. Here's some videos. There are 3 different styles: whiteboard animation, recording with either PowerPoint or Keynote, or stop motion. The kids in grade 8 made these videos. If you look at the one on the left, the positive effects of volcanoes, you're going to say, you're kidding me, a grade 8 kid made that. But even when you give them assignments, again, if it's a video in this case, you know, I've got this uploaded. I actually submitted these to a video contest. These kids got like honorable mention among like 500 kids that submitted to this video contest. So, you know, I asked them permission. Can I submit this to a contest? Because I think it's really good. But there's another thing too, right? I mean, just getting them to create content that can be shared with the world. And in this case, the reason why I use these as examples is that they are tutorial videos. So these can actually be, like this one that got honorable mention is actually on a website that is designed to teach other students, right? It's like a small scale Khan Academy kind of thing. So you could even create your own you know, video playlists on YouTube or maybe on a Google site. If you had one section where you've got whatever topic it is, you could have students create content that teaches each other. And my personal thing is, our school actually, we're an inclusive school, so we allow students to use Language 1 to help support Language 2, because we do have EAL learners. You know, if somebody can do a video in Portuguese explaining what historiography is, yeah, great, I'll put that up, because it might help some other student who speaks Portuguese but not you know, English so well.
Well, this is actually part of the, you know, the focus of our website too, is not, it's sort of originally started as something that the fourth years did to help third years and second years in my, you know, in my courses. But then, you know, very quickly we decided that what we would do, the audience would be the larger community of students around Japan who are trying to become English teachers. And so then it very quickly became, you know, the equivalent of what you're saying, how-to videos, you know, how to do pair work, how to do information gap, how to, you know, use classroom English. And you know, with students, you know, students putting together these videos and teaching. And I think it's the only way to go. I mean, I just, you know, and you know, it's not just a matter of empowering them. I think, you know, I think that it's also, you know, I want them to become confident teachers. And I think the best way to, you know, to become good at something is to teach it to someone else. And so this kind of really has a double positive.
Absolutely. And think on top of that, like what you're doing with these teachers to be is by giving that agency to them, what they'll do is hopefully pass that on to their future students, right?
Yes.
And think too of the skills that they're learning. If they've got to create a video, they got to think about audio, video. How's my audience going to receive this? They have to think about pace and timing, you know, along with the technical skills of building that content. It's just a win-win situation for everybody, right? And it's not the teacher driving the discussion, it's the students themselves, right? So something I highly recommend. So I want to talk briefly, maybe not so briefly, but podcasting. I think podcasting is just underutilized. And even myself, I thought about doing a student podcast for about a year or two, but, you know, overwhelmed with new curriculum and all that kind of stuff. But last year was like, I'm a head of department, so I went to everybody and I said, we've talked about this podcasting thing. I said, if we don't do it together, I'm doing it myself. You know, so we're like, all right, let's do it. So you can think about, if you want to do a podcast, you know, there's a lot of ways to approach it. And I will say it is not that complicated. It really, really isn't. You can think about, is it for your department? Is it going to be for you and your classes? Is it going to be for your entire school? You know, we have a teacher that's thinking about creating a digital media club, which if I didn't have Model UN and TED Ed, I would be all over it. You know, just think, is it going to be yours that you're going to take forever and ever? Because you might be moving from school to school. I know myself as an international school teacher, I do bounce around. So this is actually the example I have for you is me, you know, I'm not going to have anything when I leave. It's just for Nagoya International School. But it teaches students, if you can get to the point where they are podcasting. Just before the pandemic, I had a few students that were ready to take on interviewing other students. And then they would give that to me and I would edit, because that's the next step, right? Like I do this in chunks, right? Starting with me doing the interviewing. Then the next is they plan their questions, and then they plan and practice their interviews with students and then record it. And then the next step is to teach them to edit. And you can use GarageBand, Audacity, you know, Vocaroo, whatever. I mean, as long as you have good audio quality, you know, you can record. Now Anchor is a really popular podcasting tool. It's completely free. It directly links you to Apple and to Google. So, you know, it'll automatically host on Anchor podcasts, but you'll see, and I'll show you in a moment what ours looks like. It will automatically, well, not automatically, but it takes time to process with Apple, Google, and other podcasting platforms. But you can edit in Anchor. For me, I use GarageBand because I have an introduction where the students read the introduction. I've got some background music, which I'll show you in a moment. And then, and at the end as well. So I do a little bit more editing, but if you wanted, it could be just, they record themselves, they upload their discussion, and then you take care of uploading it to the podcast. So let me just kind of jump out here and let's see, I put it right there. So let's just give a quick listen to a few of my students here. So this is what our student podcast looks like. I've got to get the most recent ones updated. So this takes us to our landing page. You notice the consistency. Our student blog, or, you know, student website looks the same as the podcast. And it's got like our brief little thing, credit for the cover art. We've got Spotify. And then you can see down here, we've got Breaker and, you know, these other platforms. And we don't have Facebook and Twitter and that. We do. These are the school accounts that I've linked to. So I'll just give you a bit of a listen here. This is copyright-free music, which is cited.
Yeah, I don't think you're sharing audio.
Yeah, you have to restart.
Is it not? Okay, hold on. Let me.
You might have to unshare screen and share again.
Yeah, I can do that.
Audio button. And then
all right.
Hit the computer audio button, and then you're
Yep. Where are we at here? Share computer sound. Sorry, yeah, I wasn't thinking I was going to play that. All right, let's go back to that. Here we go.
In International School Individuals in Society student podcast. In this podcast, you will meet students from NIS as they share their stories, experiences, and ideas about anything that matters, or should matter, to ourselves and our planet. So sit back and learn from INS students from Nagoya International.
I can't quite see her. There we go. I want to just pop ahead a little bit.
The Renaissance, right? Olivia.
And so my topic was about the disappearance and the lost colony of Roanoke. And I did it just because I was interested in the mystery of it. And I focused specifically on the native population and the extent that they were actually involved in the disappearance of the colony. And I found out that, well, perhaps they were involved, but it's also very difficult to tell. It also happened a very long time ago, and there's limits.
Okay, so, that's just kind of an example of, students, if you go on in that, students actually talk about the role of the historian, like what did I do to find my resources? How do I corroborate corroborate sources to find the truth? Which is great, you know what I mean? Again, it's that voice, and it can be anything under the sun. So before I wrap up the podcasting bit, our grade 6 INS teachers, like, I don't know if I can do this, like kids talking about deep things when they're 12 years old. And I said, whoa, it doesn't have to be that. You can get students to describe something they've created or describe something they've learned. You can just ask them questions about, what do you know about latitude and longitude now that you didn't know 2 weeks ago? The limit is only your imagination, right? The point is not to be a podcasting, to have a podcast that millions of people watch. But we do have people listen to our podcast. We've got parents, we tweet it out. It's great for prospective parents. We're a private school, so we do have to recruit. And so students, like their parents might see like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, look, they have a podcast, kind of thing. So anyway, it shows that we're doing, some cutting edge kind of stuff. Okay, so moving right along. Book Creator is one that I think people may not use so often. I don't myself, but I'm trying to get into the habit here. So I'm going to show you a sample of something that, this is very simple to use. It's more like a tap, and then you tap on the element you want to use and then drag it around your workspace. I've got a personal project I'm working on where I record videos in 360 degrees of historical sites in Japan, culturally significant places. And this is an example of what you can do. So in the future, as I build this, I'm going to be putting a decent background in and that kind of thing, but I put my own audio in here.
Welcome to Historical Sites of Japan. This is an archive of my favorite places that I've traveled to, and I hope you like this.
Now, this is a demo, by the way, so of course this is going to be a little bit, more built up. But think about when you turn the page in Book Creator, I've got my writing, and I have this on several platforms. I've got it on ThingLink. I've got it in a YouTube description, and some other things. I've got photos that I've created myself. Let me just kind of move this around a little bit. I've got videos of myself that I've taken, and when I tap it, pops up. Let me just let that load.
We are at Mitsumine Shrine in the Chichibu area of Saitama. So now I'm going to tell you about this shrine. Now, this shrine has been a sacred area for 1900 years.
All right, so that's content that I've created, kind of thing. Your students could do that as well. You can see that it's interactive. You can put hyperlinks and things like that. I've embedded a Google map that you can, kind of look at. So, here is, a really cool tool. Let's say you give your students choice. It's like, you're going to create something this year. Maybe a student who is just painfully shy in, with video, even with audio, then you could say, you're going to produce an artifact of your learning over the course of a year. Maybe some students will choose to create a book, and maybe they'll put that media-rich content in there. Maybe your students are going to choose to do a vlog. Really, the sky's the limit. And when you give them that choice, it is that authentic voice, right? And again, that's stuff that you can share out. What I was hoping to do last year, we might get to it this year, but think of the traditional science fair, right? Well, what we want to do with students that at specifically decided years, I won't get into the background of what the IB school system is like, but if you picture a science fair, we want to do that as an INS fair at our school, where we've got students, they take some kind of thing that they've been working on over the course of a year or maybe a few months, and then we do a science fair. And, you know, they come up with their little pavilion, you know, and they, you know, would have images and they stand there and they kind of explain the process of their investigation and what they have found, you know, what are the results. And then they get to speak to people about, you know, what they've done. Science fair models are not just for science teachers, people. So, you know, anyway, that's another idea for audience or an authentic audience and for student voice. But anyway, Book Creator, highly recommended. It's actually very easy to use. And if you do their teacher training program by creating a couple of small books, then you get access to their community and build your professional learning network. Okay, so how are we doing, Charles, for questions and comments?
Yeah, there's a number of them. I was going to jump in when you're ready.
Cut me off, please. Cut me off.
No. Just okay. So Kevin had a comment that wikis are also very good. You know, if you can get the students to use them. Totally agree. You know, Steve said something about you know, basically just use the expression of student experts, and I think that's what we're talking about. Students becoming the teacher and talking about something they know. That being a great strategy for empowering students, encouraging discussion while developing their confidence. Steve had a comment, a couple of comments actually. One is about target audience is an important consideration.
Absolutely.
And he asked whether it's the podcast or public or it's a kind of a walled garden. And I think you kind of answered that, but you know, if you want to address that.
The podcast, yeah, I mean, I do believe, I honestly was not looking for something, whether you make it public or not, but I believe a podcast, you could limit it. If you wanted a podcast to be in-house, then you could just create it within your own domain and not even use Anchor or whatever. But that's a good question, though. I'm not 100% sure, but we could probably Google that really quickly and find out. I could log in and have a look. I'm pretty sure in Anchor, you can make it private. You know, only people with the link can access it. You know, or require a login of sorts. Good question, though. I'm going to write that down and maybe post in OTJ. Let's see, privacy in Anchor.
Another question was from Timmy. There's a couple of comments related to whether or not this could be done with lower level students. And I was thinking about my own second year students. This is before they've actually declared to become teachers. They declare in their third year. So in the second year, their English is still pretty low. And one of the projects I do with them takes a couple of weeks. But, you know, basically getting them to, you know, think about technology, and they all have cell phones. So say, okay, well, what we're going to do is you're going to work in a group of 4 or 5 students. And over the next couple of weeks, you're going to have to develop a 10-minute video, which tells us about your favorite movie, explains the movie, you know, shows it. You show us the trailer for the video. You show us a YouTube review for the video, but interspersed between all of that, your whole team has to talk about the movie. And they basically teach themselves how to splice. They you know, I encourage them to use humor, and you know, some of them are using puppets. Who are the people who are shy are using puppets. They're doing all kinds of crazy things, but they're very low level. The students, their English is very low level, but because they have several weeks to prepare, they can work, and they can use, you know, this was a discussion whether or not you can use the L1. Yes, when they're working in groups, they can use the L1, but what they actually produce and what they show to the class at the end of the month is 100% in English, and they're astonishingly good. And I really do just act as the facilitator. I'm not introducing them to that much software or editing technique. They kind of they kind of teach themselves, and it's a great confidence boosting project that leads to very authentic content. And you know, definitely here, I think it's another example of where student voice is very powerful.
And that goes back to that motivating students, right? Getting them to really want to do this. You know, it could be through for some, it could be fear of this is going to be public, or it could be like, all right, people are going to see this and I get to talk about what I want to talk about, right? So yeah, I agree 100%. Well,
the other thing is just, and I want to ask you, this is a question to everybody, but what I do in that particular project is it's graded by the students as well. So I make a form ahead of time, say, these are the things your presentation is going to be graded for. And then the students are doing the grading as well. So it's you know, everybody is listening very intently. Everybody is presenting very intently. And the grades, you know, are largely made by the students. So I think that helps as well. And
well, I think for yourself,
yeah.
I think for yourself in your context, that actually serves them because they're future teachers, right? So they're getting a little bit of practice with assessment. I know myself at an international baccalaureate school, I'd never be able to do that. I get students to give feedback to each other based on the assessment criteria, but I can't use that to give them a grade.
But
I have to assess them myself.
Could you
I'm
mix
not allowed.
it?
Nope,
No, not even
not
mix.
allowed.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
But other people might, and I think it's a good point, right? You know, and oh, I'm going to be graded by my peers. You know, that can be a motivator. It could strike fear into the hearts of some, but you never know, right? But going back to Steve's comment about naming conventions, right? What you're going to name your video, you know, your YouTube channel or your vlog or your podcast. I think naming things is really, really important, and I think especially if you're going to be a teacher that's going to go to a different, you know, if you teach at 2 or 3 different schools, if you might be moving around, you know, then that naming convention is one that speaks to a wide audience or a very direct target audience. There's a reason why my website is called Social Studies Samurai, because it fits under things that I, you know, like economics and political science and history and geography. I've got a wide range of people, but it still is niche, right? You know, a student learning blog, you know, that's for NIS students, and it could be anything under the sun, but it still has the INS, so it shows our department. So jumping into this speaking thing, we okay there with the things? I'm noticing it's 5 after 8. Looks like we were okay for 1 hour, folks. So, because I want to do some interactive stuff in a moment right after this as well. So
keep going.
Okay, so we all know TED. We all know TED Talks and that kind of thing. TED Ed has a program called TED Ed Clubs for the ages 8 to 18. So you wouldn't be able to do this. You do register. I've got students that on YouTube, they actually have their videos on TED Ed Club, have to get permission forms signed and all that. But who's to say you couldn't do a TED style talk at your institution? If you were going to go public and do branding, then you're going to have to call it something else. TED Ed will find you and give you a hard time. But I want to show you an example of, now my students, this is my 4th year now doing a TED Ed Club, and we are officially sanctioned by the TED organization. But there's no reason why you couldn't do that. And I'm sure, you know, most or all your schools are doing some kind of public speaking event. But who's to say you can't just put something together through your own department or through your own program, or maybe in tandem with other people? I don't know if some people might be from Nagoya watching this, but a friend of mine, Manuele, he and I we had a meeting like back before the pandemic about creating this TED style event for students in Nagoya, you know, with permission from TED. But if we didn't get permission, we just call it something else. But we talked about linking our schools up, and we'd have like, you know, a general theme and this and that. It is work to put it together, but after you've done it for a couple of years, it kind of works. Now, let's say in your class, you just want to do, let's say you go back to remote learning, right? Well, let's say you want your students to do official formal presentations. There's a free online app called StreamYard that takes you directly to YouTube. And because our TED event that we normally do at a proper venue, we couldn't do, we said, okay, folks, let's do a live broadcast. OBS is a little bit too complicated to go through in this kind of session, but that would be better than StreamYard's easier to use. Very, very user-friendly. You can get up to 10 people in the conversation, but let me quickly show you my students. Let me just get in.
Our interests and passions and what we want to share through the TED Talks. And then we would sort of discuss them among each other in meetings. So
what Kotomi is doing is talking about her, what we do in the club. And we broke up the presentation without me talking. I was just there to kind of moderate. And each student had they did their talk, but they also had like the welcome and in the middle kind of thing. And you could see that people could be commenting on YouTube because this was a live broadcast, right? Those 193 views, I'd say most of them were on the day. We had something like 90 views on the day.
Language will be Spanish. As people around these kids who come from this mixed cultures or multiple identities should not see them through the lens of what they see or what they hear from.
19 had not become a widespread pandemic. There weren't major isolation and quarantine affecting everyone, and so much more. As a student, I went.
These talks I thought were really fabulous. I'm not going to play them all for you, but what I do want to emphasize is that, you know, we did it live on YouTube, and you can see, you know, the comments, you know, they stay live as well. You could turn that off if you want, but and we did put this up publicly. You do get the watermark that you see here, powered by StreamYard with the free account. You notice Alexia here forgot to hide her slide deck, but the idea is like, So here are kids giving their voice. Now this guy right here, I'm not going to use his name because we're recording this and you can see his face. He graduated last year, not a painfully shy person, but a generally quiet person, amazing soccer player. But he joined the TED Club because he wanted to get better at speaking. And he knew by joining this club, he's going to have to do a presentation. The very first year we had something like, we expected hopefully 20 people to come watch. We had 60. It was fantastic. For this event, we had, not quite 100 people to watch in real time. This student right here, she did this talk at the end of grade 11. She spoke almost no English in grade 9. She just finished a 4,000-word essay that she did write herself, with guidance from me as a thing. And her voice was talking about being the daughter of a Japanese woman and a Chinese husband who are divorced, but has a stepdad, and so she's got a Canadian, Chinese, Japanese identity. The family's all fine, which is why I'm okay to kind of talk about that. But but that's her voice, and in there she says, do you realize there's I speak Chinese and I speak Japanese and now I speak English and I'm going to study Spanish in university, and think of how many people in the world I can talk to and how many doors are going to open up for me. It was amazing talk. And I didn't tell her to, what the topic was. And the TED program, it's got a really good curriculum that you could use. You don't have to join TED to use that curriculum, right? But anyway, the point is, do a student event, do it live on YouTube. They get an authentic audience, and it really gets them to create good work. And you can see I'm excited right now because I'm really proud of my students in that club. I think they do fabulous, fabulous stuff. Were there any comments there before we do a couple more?
Well, I have one. I was just thinking, that TED also has the radio show, right?
Yep.
And if you've ever listened to it, what they do is, they have like the narrator, and then it's like a topic of the day, and he strings together 2 or 3 TED Talks, and he gives little excerpts of the TED Talk, but then he interviews the person who is giving the TED Talk. And I was thinking that often with my teacher training, we'll have this, each student will record their own teaching on, using this, and then go back and watch the video and do something with it. But I was thinking that your students have made these wonderful TED Talks, and that to sort of utilize that content further, this could be one way to do it, is either you or other students to sort of set up a podcast of interviewing the TED Talk person, and getting them to talk a little bit more further, stuff that didn't make it into it, or let them explain the concepts a little bit further. And it just might be another thing to do.
Well, what we do actually, not quite connected to what you're talking about, but I do have an anecdote for that as well. We do something after about the first 6 weeks of the club. We do something called an Ignite Talk. We keep it really simple. We do it in the library. We do it at lunch. We invite people in. This time, I think we'll have to do it virtually. We are face-to-face, but we're limited in what we're allowed to do. But they do an Ignite Talk. So they talk for 2 minutes about the different TED Ed ideas they have. And we ask the audience to give feedback. What do you think? Where would you go? Among the 3 suggestions they brought up, what would you do? So there's a bit of audience engagement, and the students are at the same time practicing their speaking skills, sharing their ideas, using their voice and their pace, and creating a simple slide that doesn't have a whole bunch of ugly text and misalignment and all that kind of stuff. These kinds of things, when you're presenting like that, there's so many skills that are involved in that. Something else that we're trying to do along with the podcasting is getting students to walk around and interview people. Hey, I'm doing the podcast for grade 8 individuals and societies. They've got their phone. We're thinking about the department buying a couple of microphones that you can attach to an Android or a smartphone, an iPhone, for example, and they can walk around and actually interview people and just ask them random questions under the sun that relate. And that is student voice. I might be asking you for your voice on something, but I'm choosing the topic, so that's my voice too. And maybe that's going to get uploaded. We're still floating some new ideas, but 2 days ago we just had a meeting talking about the very same thing. So, your idea there, Charles, I think is great. Yep. Before we get into one more thing, I don't have a slide for this because it popped into my head. There is something else I do for student voice every once in a while. I didn't get to do this last year because I pushed it off and then the pandemic came, but I've done it the last couple of years in a row. And that's Twitter Live. If you use the tool in Twitter called Periscope, you can broadcast video live on Twitter. And so we were studying apartheid and the life of Nelson Mandela, but also oppression in the world today. You know, we used apartheid as our historical model. And then, you know, I wanted students to kind of share what they were thinking about oppression in the world, whether it's child slavery or girls having less access to education than boys, you know, and all those kinds of things.
Hey,
And
Nate, this is a question just came up, and it was my question too. Periscope was bought by Twitter. Is that what happened? Because Periscope, I used when it first came out, everybody was like, wow, look at this. And I actually brought it into my teacher training. I have a technology and language learning class, and I brought Periscope in and demonstrated it, and it worked pretty well until you ended up getting some people coming into the room, and they were kind of asking questions they shouldn't have been asking, and there was no control for that. So I was wondering,
the problem. Yeah,
you know, I was wondering that once, you know, if Twitter has bought Periscope, did they solve that issue? Because this was a couple of years ago I was doing this, and it happened. It kind of seemed to get worse over time. So I felt like I didn't feel, you know, I felt uneasy bringing Periscope in with a group of students when you didn't know who was going to be there. And I thought maybe Twitter has fixed it or somehow, or is it still a problem?
I don't really know, because you know, we were going to use it this last academic year, and again the pandemic came, and like I said, I kind of put it off. But I'll check into that, because you got me curious. We've never had that problem, right? You know, we've had all we've done is tweeted it out through the department Twitter account from the school. And then, you know, of course, the school is tweeting it out through the school account and all that. We do a lot of Twitter where I'm at. And we've had up to 30, 40 people watching. And, you know, for a 10-minute, you know, what I would do is put out on Twitter, INS students are going to talk about their views on oppression in the world from 9:30, you know, Monday morning. And, you know, people just kind of came in, and of course, we didn't get any comments. We got little heart marks and all that kind of stuff. But we're talking just a very short 5 to 10 minute thing where students have to say, I've learned this, and this is what I think about it. So it's something to think about. But that's an important point there, Charles. And we've seen more of that since you know.
And Bill actually. Bill's pointed out that Periscope was actually acquired by Twitter before it even launched, so it's always been owned by Twitter. I think is the point.
Has it always been owned by Twitter? Yeah.
I didn't know that, but it was just, I used it as a separate downloadable app, and I was, you know, it's kind of an amazing thing, but I didn't know that it was owned by Twitter. So thanks for letting us know about that, Bill.
Yeah, that was my assumption, that Twitter already owned it, kind of thing. For me, it was strange that we would have an app outside of their app. You know what I mean? But when you just said that, so when did Twitter buy it? I thought, oh, you mean has it always been Twitter? You know, I wasn't sure. It's something I never thought about. I do want to show you a few more things. We're not going to jump into all of these because they're quite basic to use, and you could, you know, use these on your own. But Pear Deck we've kind of looked at, Mentimeter we've looked at, but I want to show you one that I think is kind of cool when you're in that large space, right? This is Classroom Q. Let's say you're back in the classroom. You could do this remotely if students don't want to use the chat. This is one that kind of works either from your phone. You could do it from, you know, your phone, or you could do it from your browser or whatever. But what I'd like you to do is to go to classroomq.com, and I want you to select student. And now I'm logged in here, so I can't, but go to classroomq.com, and I'll throw that in the chat. And this is if students use a pseudonym, so you don't have to use your real name. They can throw up questions in real time. So let's say you're at the front of the room, you're kind of talking. And they can do it from their phone, they can do it from an iPad or a tablet or you know, a browser or whatever. But go to classroomq.com and then type in the code. In fact, I'll throw that in there too. And again, I'm on the teacher view right here. What you're going to see as a student is the red button. Let me throw that back in the chat.
That'd be great.
Okay, so I've thrown the password. Okay, so Charlie's got his name. Hi there. So throw in a question.
I mean the background in your Zoom, not your.
Let's see, cancel. I have to throw in the question before I ask for assistance.
So, guess what?
So go ahead, folks. For the free version, I can have 5 questions that I can see in the queue. They will be backlogged, so when you delete one, the next one will kind of come up. But if we can get a few questions in there, you can kind of see how it works in that bigger classroom environment. And this is... Well, Charlie, I see that now remember, I wouldn't be showing this to my students. What I do is actually pull it up on my phone. And so I keep an eye on my phone if I'm projecting my computer, right? Or I just make sure that I'm projecting only my screen, right? You know, that wasn't possible with slides up until like, you know, about a year or two ago. But so I've seen Charlie. If other people posed questions right now, you're going to see number 2, then their name or pseudonym, and then 3, 4, 5. And what I can do is just tap. I can clear the queue. Okay, Steve, what is the average flight velocity of the African sparrow?
Steve, right on, man. African or European, is that it? That's the
yeah, exactly, right? So
a fully laden sparrow.
So now that Steve has annoyed me, I'm going to tap on him and get him notice I've just tapped. So I've just tapped and I put them out kind of thing. But Steve, can you answer that question for us, please? So I thought somebody would write something like, where do babies come from? But okay. So anyway, that's Classroom Q. You do have to create an account, but you see that's a very, very quick way to get students to ask questions that they might be nervous to ask. Who's going to win the WNBA championships? I don't know. Cassie? 42. All right. So if I want, I'm just going to clear the queue, and now I've made space for other people to come in. But again, that's if you keep them with a pseudonym, then they get their voice. Where do English teachers come from? Thanks, Timmy. Anyway, that's Classroom Q. There's another one called Yo Teach. If you want to play with it, I'll give you, we're not going to go through this because it works very similarly to Classroom Q, except it's a little bit more robust. I like Classroom Q because of its simplicity, but if you want to play with Yo Teach, go for it. One that I do want to show you is Kialo EDU, okay? Now, Kialo EDU, I want to show you one that we did. Now, here's an example of what I did with my grade 11 students last year. So you can see here, if I zoom in, we've got 23 comments. Here's one that my school did with a school up in Tokyo, you know, another international school. I'll show you first. Actually, no, I'm going to show you these. But here's an example of a question that can be challenging, right? To what extent was the atomic bombing of Japan necessary? Or maybe a better word would be justified, right? Because the way it works, in fact, let's do this. My grade 11 students are really sharp kids. I absolutely love them. Be a little bit quiet sometimes, but, you know. Okay, so the way it works is you've got this drop-down scaffolding, right? So the teacher sets it up by putting a question in, right? So I might go in and actually, I'm not going to edit, but I could go in and edit and change that word to justified, which I think is a better word, to be honest with you. But I had my students to, you know, had them go in and they, you know, if you tap on the specific comment, then you can see who else commented on it. So if somebody said it ended the war sooner, spared American lives, blah, blah, blah. And then one person said, yeah, I agree. In war, people tend to blah, blah, blah. And then another person said, yeah, I don't really agree somewhat because. And so you see, you get this conversation going where if somebody likes something, they can add to it. If somebody likes the comment, you can click the heart button and that means you agree with it. And you can click the arrow and it can take you, you know, back up to the top and then you can, you know, kind of scroll around and see what the top level conversations were. So let me just kind of go back and show you this other one that we did. 2 grade 9 classes. Go back to my conversations here. So talking with a teacher up in Tokyo, we had a job alike for individuals and societies teachers. Look at all these top level comments, right? And so what issues should the world's governments be focusing on and how do they compare to issues facing Japan? Here's one, like this one comment right here has all of these responses, right? And you can tap on any response and then people are responding to responses, right? It's a very cool tool. You know, we had to go through the conversation of, you know, reminding our students, how do you politely disagree? How do you professionally disagree? How do you respectfully disagree? But Kialo EDU is a pretty cool tool. It's not very pretty to look at, but we had a great success with this. In total, I think we had about maybe 40 students working on it. We've got 130 comments from them. Fabulous conversations in each class. We did it asynchronously as well because it's not, you know, done. I mean, it's done in real time, but their classes are scheduled at different points in the day. So,
hey, Nate.
Yeah.
Can you teach OTJ members how to politely disagree with each other? And
I'm not going there.
I resent that comment.
I am not going there.
Thank you. They're all teachers. They should know better, right?
Yeah, right?
Nate, may
Sorry.
I ask you about that last activity? When you did that, were the students busy typing on their smartphones? Were they talking? How did it look?
Yeah, that was done asynchronously because we did it with another school. So what I did with my students was assign it as homework. The first day, we didn't do it in just one day. We did it over a few times. So which is why you see, like the comments there were done by grade 9 kids. You can see that they're robust, you know, because we kind of talked about the engagement, right? We give, you know, as an assessment, their engagement with these kinds of activities gets assessed. So what we said is, here's your homework. You've got to go to Kealo EDU. We tested it out one day in class. They learned how to use the app. And then for the second and third responses, then I just said, all right, you got to do that for homework kind of thing. The school in Tokyo, they had, you know, their classes don't match with mine. I deliberately didn't bring Flipgrid into this. I do have a link to it down below. But if you want, you know, for real time, it's always better just to do Zoom or Skype or Meet or whatever, obviously. But Flipgrid's good if you want to do a video face-to-face thing. But for Kealo EDU, that would be, you know, it could be done at the same time, but asynchronously, I find it works better. I hope that answered your question, though.
Yeah.
Two more, just very quickly, I want to point out, Answer Garden. It's really quick to create. I'm not going to create one, just I'm looking at the time here and I want to, you know, honor it as best as possible. But come on, load, will you? I'm going to start closing stuff here. See, that helps a little bit. Okay, so if you go to create an answer garden, right? You could, in fact, you know, we could go to the demo, but basically you type in your topic, you choose what mode you want. I always go with classroom mode. I choose maximum 20 characters, and I have, I don't do the password and login stuff. And all I do is I leave it to lowercase. I keep, it doesn't really how long, you know, if you have the link, it'll be visible forever. And you click create. So let me just go back to the demo here. And basically you've got this open space. So Answer Garden is a cool tool. And if I tap that, you can see their demo. You've got all these different ideas that have come from other people. You watch this garden grow. It works really well when you have one-word or two-word answers kind of thing, or things like Japanese culture. When I say Japanese culture, what do you think? And then people are writing things like, you know, sushi, samurai, that kind of deal. You know, and you can, as you mouse over these, you can see the number of people. So 130 people said amazing. 127 people said, you know, awesome or red or whichever it is. But Answer Garden's a cool one. It's really simple to use, so I don't feel we need to go through a demo. Another one I do want to show is Tricider or Tricider. Again, another tool that you can use in class, whether it's synchronously or asynchronously. I'm going to throw in a quick question. Let's see. Give me a question, Charles. Can I throw you on the spot? Student voice related.
My dog is barking. You probably don't want me to have my...
Never mind. All right. So let's see. I'm just going to say, please offer a tool you like. It can be one you've seen in this session today to augment. I'm not typing well. Maybe you like, or maybe use, want to use. For, and I'm going to put SV for student voice. So I've typed in my question. I'm not even logged in, right? I haven't logged in. I'm going to click go. And so now what I'm going to do is click this share and invite button. And this is where I'm going to get my link, right? So I can just copy the link there. Unfortunately, I kind of have to copy that. Now, before you go in, I want to show you what's going to happen though, because I've got this, you know, I'm not logging in. I'm using the free open account. It's like an idea, and I'm going to put my idea, and I could type Tricider, you know, Tricider. I'm going to put a pseudonym. It tells you you can add images and descriptions. Once you click save, the only one thing that could trick students is they think they got to sign in. No, you don't. You just have to click no thanks, I don't want to. And so Now what you can go, you could type longer. It doesn't have to be just, one word responses. You could have like sentences and that kind of thing. Somebody can come in and add an argument. This is too dull. The interface is ugly. And of course the name's optional in this case. So I'm going to click save. Let's see, I have to, yes, I like it or I don't like it. Whoops, I should have actually put minus. So I save it. And so now I get a vote, right? So the votes kind of change. Maybe I want to add an argument. I say I like it, love it, not loke it, love it, click save. And then other people can kind of come in. So actually go in and just respond to that. Yeah, for some reason, there we go. I'm going to throw the link in the chat. This is another good one to get, debate or discussion kind of going on in class, and that affirmation. So can I ask somebody to please vote for my topic? I can vote for myself, actually, if I want. And yes, I have had students do that. I voted for myself because I like my argument. It's like, yeah, all right. So I'm going to give you a moment to engage with that. And maybe there's a tool that you haven't seen that, it might be below this. I've got a few other things in this slide deck that you can refer to. I'm not going to bring them out today because it's already 8:31. We started a few minutes late, so I think it's still legal for me to finish up in the next few minutes.
Absolutely. I think we're good for a few more minutes.
Okay. Okay. Usually you don't have to refresh. It kind of goes, okay, look at that. So Padlet, yes, I'm going to upvote that. I've got Padlet in this slide deck, but I figure some people might know it, some people don't. So go ahead and for yourself, just, all right, somebody says it looks good. I'm going to hit plus. I like that one. Well, oh, right. That's your argument. I can't get in that. I'm going to give it a thumbs up kind of thing. I'm going to thumbs up, yeah. So anyway, play around with that a little bit and kind of, think about how could I use this in my class? And again, it's student voice. It could be a pseudonym, just, have that discussion about what is it, to, share your idea professionally and responsibly and ethically and that kind of thing. Remember, it's now everybody's responding to my thought right here, but it's add idea if you want to get that long discussion going. And yes, I do use this in my classes and my students like it. We get into talking about political voice and that kind of thing. So classroom cue, we looked at that. I'm going to take out that code because you don't need it right now. Pear Deck, we looked at it. There's the links to it. Answer Garden, I just very quickly showed you how that works. YoTeach works like Classroom Q. I gave you the link to that where you could, kind of play with it and see how it looks. Mentimeter, we did that. And there's different kind of menties you can make. Tricider, I think it's called. Kialo EDU, we looked at. We'll take that code out. And let's see, Padlet, we heard from somebody in there. Flipgrid, there's another session, I think it was earlier in the week or today. I was in the middle of the day, so I couldn't go. You notice I'm wearing my Flipgrid shirt. I'm one of their ambassadors. I've actually presented at their headquarters before, which is kind of cool. Back channel chat's one you might want to try. I'm full of shameless self-promotion. Google Forms, I think, is a good one to get responses. Very simply, if you wanted to get a quick poll, just go to, if you're in a Chrome browser, forms.new. If you do that, it's automatically going to open up a Google form for you if you're logged into your Google account. If you're kind of like, I got to make a form really quickly. If you're already logged into Google, just type forms.new. Create your one-word question. Make it multiple choice as an opinion poll. Then you just have to preview it and share that form. Make sure that people can view it. In fact, that would be done through the send. You want to actually go to your, you want to go to your gear and make sure that everybody can, look at it. Make sure you've got the permissions set. And then you just share the link with people. And what happens is with your responses, if it's a multiple choice or, like a checkbox and that kind of thing, then what you can do is look at a pie graph or a bar graph response, and that can lead to a discussion where based on the students' voices. It's like, okay, well, a third of you felt blah, blah, blah. Half of you felt blah, blah, blah. Why do you think people feel this way? And you don't have to talk about what you thought about. You could say, well, maybe the people that say this were thinking blah, blah, blah. Well, maybe the people that say that were thinking blah, blah, blah. It might be a little bit advanced if you're having a discussion, but at least you as the teacher can get their feedback And then you could say, well, I thought it was interesting that people thought this and that. So Google Forms, really simple, but hey, you know, why not use it? I've not modified these. These are from a thing I did with English teachers in Japan, their expo earlier. But there are a few more that I just kind of pasted in there. I'll make the slide deck look a little bit prettier. But poll everywhere is something you might want to look at. And let's see, what was the other one? Formative. They work similarly with some of the other polling apps. Their interfaces aren't super pretty, but I do find Poll Everywhere has some pretty cool examples. This is something my students did last year. You know, so they dragged and dropped their rankings. And then this automatically put it into the top ranked one and the second ranked one based on student feedback, which was pretty cool. Basic polling app. So I'm going to stop sharing my, yep.
I actually did want to ask something. It was related to the last app that you showed. And,
sure.
and I'm on sabbatical this year, so I haven't had to do all of the COVID ERT that everybody else has. I've been doing teacher training online, but you know, until last year, I was always introducing students to apps and having them sign up. But I've always had difficulty. Any app where there is like a whole bunch of information, like sign in, you know, with your Google account, and then there's this little tiny no thanks, you know, and then go on. You know, in a class of 40 students, no matter what I do or how much I explain, there always seems to be a few students who just don't listen at the time when I'm explaining, or just don't get it. And I'm just wondering, are you experiencing the same thing, and how do you deal with that? It's a very low level technical question, but I just find that I seem to be wasting a good amount of time just with that. No, you don't have to sign in. You can just click beyond. I mean, I've made screenshots and things like that, but even with screenshots and the big circle at the bottom, you know, you don't need to sign in. But even then, people still sometimes miss it.
I get that. One way around that probably is if you had a slide that has an arrow with a screenshot, like for example with Tricider, arrow pointing. Maybe that doesn't work for everybody as well.
No, that's kind of what I do, like that. You know, like a big, you know, the screenshot in Mac, it allows you with that big, thick red circle and then the arrow. I mean, I'm doing stuff like that. And still,
right.
Yeah, Jose.
My quasi solution to that, and I have the same problem because I teach an even worse audience than students, and that's about
teachers?
tech, and that's teachers. Yes. Oh, way to spoil my joke.
I wasn't spoiling it. I was
okay, because you were commiserating. I understand. And the best way, Charlie, is to do screen movies, not screenshots, not static stuff, but to literally have a voiceover, and like you get the kind that can track your mouse. Okay, now watch my mouse, move it slowly up to the top left corner. Are you okay? Okay, now say ah. Here comes the choo-choo train.
Yeah, you're right. I think that's what I should
movies.
be doing.
It always seems to work because it just catches the eye better. You have a voiceover on it, so you can actually speak to it. Sometimes I even, if it's a really important thing, I edit it so that then you can see my face as I'm doing it.
But you know, the funny thing is like I've been through this so many times, and I always think I don't have enough time to do this. I don't have enough time. I'm just going to make a screenshot. But in the end, when you think about how much time you waste because that screenshot wasn't enough, actually making the movie is a time saver. I'm going to remember that next time. Thanks. You're right.
Let me see it.
I wonder if it's establishing a culture. Like, you know, in my context, you know, every year we do have some students that might be EAL. They've come straight from Brazil or, you know, France or wherever. And we always try to pair them up with people, right? And I allow students, like a couple of the girls today were speaking Portuguese during a discussion activity. I just looked at them, I smiled, I said, I don't speak Portuguese, but it sounds so cool. And they were helping each other when, you know, it was time to speak. And so, you know, one student, I said, so can you explain that? And the other girl was kind of helping her out. So that ask three before me, like get that person beside you to help you out. That's a tough one because we're in English. Like, I mean, our students are fairly proficient, you know what I mean? And those that aren't, they have the support in the room, you know what I mean? We don't tell them English only, right? So
Charlie, for example, like this, I made a movie for how to change your name in Zoom because it was something that was just such a repetitive thing that I had to tell every kid coming into the room. Okay, this is how you change your name. So it's going for kanji. And I posted it behind me as a virtual background movie. and it works every time.
I didn't even know that you could. I do a lot with virtual backgrounds, for directions, but I didn't know that you could do videos. I've done lots of, like the day's goals or directions, but that's really cool. I hadn't even thought of trying to post a movie like that. Very nice.
On the support pages for Zoom, if you look under virtual backgrounds, you'll see there's support pages telling you the specifications that you have to follow for the size, for the file type.
I use a website that actually helps me to make virtual backgrounds, including movies. I just hadn't thought to use it that way. That's great. That's a really cool tip.
Yeah, I'm throwing one into the chat here. Keep going, Charlie.
No, and what I was going to say is we're about 10 minutes over now, and what I was gonna say is thank you, Nate, for doing such a fantastic job. But not only doing a fantastic job in introducing us to so many different tools, but for sharing the PowerPoint like this, because I think what you went through so many different things is going to be hard for everybody to absorb. And there was one or two comments, kind of jokes about that. But the fact that we have the PowerPoint and we have the links, this is one that I'm looking forward to, going back through again slowly. This is very, very useful session.
Yeah, it's like I said, I've been doing this kind of thing for a long time, and I had to reconcile with myself. What do I want to do? Give like a lot of different tools, use some of them, and then have people kind of go back and absorb at their own time. Like I had a 90-minute session with some teachers in California a few weeks ago, and they're all social studies teachers, across the range. And at the beginning I said, listen, this is going to go not too fast in terms of pace, but you're going to see a lot of different things. But that's why you've got the slides deck. The deck's got like 80 slides. And I said, don't worry about being overwhelmed. You don't have to be super teacher and go and try all these things. My mission is to show you that there are other things out there. And if you play with them at your own pace, find the ones that work for you, right? And that's why I've got the slide decks that, I can say, hey, listen, you don't have to do all this stuff. You can learn on your own, test it out with your colleagues before students. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there, and some people do get overwhelmed, you know what I mean? So yeah, I've been there, and that's, trust me, I'm very cognizant of that. In terms of screencasting and that, I threw in, I know Screencastify people can use and all that. I put recordit.co. That's another one I used for a while. Camtasia, you got to pay for it, but that's a really good one. It's called, within Camtasia, there's another one that's called Trap It or something. I can't remember, but that's paid.
Snagit.
Snagit, that's it, Snagit, thank you. I got a free account again through Google, right? So I don't use it as much as I probably should, but thank you, Jose, or who is it? Snagit, whoever said that.
Steve.
That was Steve, and I apologize. My hand was raised, so I'm just going to interject really quickly. I just wanted to call back to what Charlie was saying about recording videos as responses, as it actually saves time. And this is one thing that I did with my seminar students with their Sotsudon, is when they would send me the Sotsudon, rather than using the actually Word commenting feature, which I found they would just click accept, and really not learn from it. I would print out their essays and circle all and highlight all my things that I want to comment on. I would take photos, and then using Line, I would send them an audio feedback on each image. And in that way, the students were forced to comprehend the input and then adapt their own writing to match that. So it kind of like, it skips, like just like using the video feedback, it skips that process where they can just copy paste it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was something that I did that I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, there's a cool Chrome extension called Mote, M-O-T-E, where you can give audio feedback within a Google Doc, which is kind of cool. So anyway, just as a last note, you saw a lot of stuff here, like, podcasting and, a site and putting on events, right? Those are just ideas. You got to come up with what, you think is within your capacity to do, right? You can't be super teacher and do everything. Maybe even consult your students and give them the agency. What do you want to work on together, right? So, take your time, think about what's possible and what's not, and don't worry about trying to be perfect the first time around. But anyway, there you go. Things for class, things for outside of class, long term. And if you build something, please send it in OTJ. I'd love to see it. And thanks, Charles, for moderating, and Jose for setting this up, or you know, whoever set this Zoom up and all that kind of stuff. But again, OTJ folk, thank you very much. Just happy
great
to be
job,
part
Nate.
of the group.
Everybody, you know,
Thank you, Nate.
Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Arigato.
So, time for a beer.